All right, so picture this with me. You're walking down the street, right? Maybe it's even a Friday night, things are buzzing,
Yeah.
and you're taking it all in. And then, out of nowhere, this electric car
Whoosh.
just glides by, so quiet.
Hmm.
And it gets you thinking, right? Like, this is the future we're talking about. A future powered by batteries.
Batteries.
And what are those batteries powered by? Lithium.
Exactly.
And guess what? Argentina, sitting on a potential gold mine of the stuff.
It's true. We're talking about the lithium triangle here. Argentina, Bolivia, Chile. Together, they've got more than half of the entire world's known lithium reserves. It's incredible. And in 2023, Argentina alone pulled out 55,000 tons of lithium.
Wow.
Oh, and we're just getting started. That's not even counting all the other minerals they're pulling out of the ground. Gold, silver, copper.
Okay, so we're talking about this incredible natural resource, and at a time when the whole world is trying to go green, trying to find cleaner solutions for energy. Sounds like, a win-win for Argentina. Should be a slam dunk, right?
I think so.
And that's why we're diving into this. We've got Enrique Aurelli's work here, all about critical materials and geopolitics, plus some other fascinating sources you sent our way.
Yeah.
Because we've got to look beyond the hype, you know what I mean? Like any smart investor does.
Right. You've got to do your due diligence.
Exactly.
And that's where this gets really interesting because, Argentina's history with resource extraction, let's just say it's been complicated. It's not exactly a new story, right?
Right.
Often, it boils down to outside companies coming in, taking what they need, making their profits, while Argentina's left dealing with the consequences. The environmental impact, the social costs.
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack in this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, if Argentina is going to be a major player in this whole global shift towards green energy, it can't just be about the profits. It's got to be done right.
That has to be.
For the people, for the economy, for the future of Argentina.
Aurelli really hits the nail on the head with this. He doesn't just throw numbers at you. He really digs deep, into the systems, the players, the potential pitfalls, all the things Argentina has to navigate if they're going to do this right.
Right. So let's get into some of those numbers. We mentioned lithium, but in 2023, Argentina also produced 60 tons of gold, 800 tons of silver, and hold on to your hats, 280,000 tons of copper.
It sounds impressive, right? Like looking at a highlight reel.
Yeah.
But this is where Aurelli, he urges caution. He points out that most of these exports, they leave Argentina as raw materials. Like, we're talking basic ingredients here, not the finished product.
Okay, so we're shipping out all these raw materials. So then the question is, if Argentina's sitting on this wealth of resources, who's actually cashing in?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. And this is where we get to the heart of it all. Royalties.
Yeah, royalties. And this is where things get, well, a little concerning.
So let's talk about these royalties. Aurelli, he breaks it down, and it's kind of shocking. Argentina caps its mining royalties at 3%.
3%. You got it.
So for every $100, let's say, of lithium that comes out of the ground, the government sees, what, $3 at most?
Yeah, $3 max. And even that 3% figure, it's a little misleading, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, because of all these tax breaks, loopholes. You know how it goes. Companies, they've got their ways. So in reality, it's often way less than that 3%. In fact, Aurelli points out that in 2023, total mining royalties for everything only made up 0.1% of Argentina's GDP.
0.1%. That's like what?
It's peanuts.
Peanuts is right. It's like trying to fund a city, the whole city's budget, offering a lemonade stand,
It's not that far off, actually.
So, it makes you wonder, right? With royalties that low, are everyday Argentinians actually seeing any benefit from this whole mining boom?
It's the question, isn't it? And it's tied to another big promise, right? Job creation. Everyone says mining brings jobs, and that's true, to a point. But again, Aurelli, he digs into the numbers. And in 2023, direct mining jobs, they only made up 0.7% of total employment in the entire country.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
I'm no math whiz, but that doesn't exactly sound like, this huge engine for job growth that everyone talks about.
Right. It's not quite living up to the hype, and it gets worse. See, a lot of these jobs, they're tied to the construction of the mining projects.
Okay.
So once that mine is built, once it's operational, they don't need as many people.
So the jobs disappear.
Exactly. Temporary, not permanent.
So we're not just talking about the number of jobs. We're talking about the kind of jobs. Whether they're actually benefiting people in the long run.
Exactly. And even then, even if the jobs were there, there's another layer to this. Aureli calls it the enclave effect.
Enclave effect.
Yeah, so picture this. You've got your mining operation, right? It's like this self-contained bubble. Inside Argentina, sure, but it's extracting the resources, making its profits, but it's not really benefiting the community around it,
Huh.
or the broader economy, for that matter. Aureli uses the example of the Bajo de la Alhambra gold mine. When it was operational, yeah, it brought in a lot of money, but a lot of that wealth, it just flowed right out of the country. What was left behind? Environmental damage and a community struggling to cope with the mine shutting down.
So it's a cautionary tale. We can't just take these promises of economic transformation at face value.
Exactly. And this all becomes even more important when we start talking about the next level of Argentina's mining potential. Rare earth elements.
Right, because it's not just about lithium. We're talking about those materials that are in everything, right? Our
Yeah.
phones, electric car batteries, wind turbines, even medical equipment.
Everything. And this is where it gets even more complicated. See, Argentina, it's sitting on significant deposits of rare earths, too. Not just lithium. But here's the kicker. Processing them. That's a whole different ballgame than just digging them up.
Okay, how so?
It takes high-tech processing,
Yeah.
specialized knowledge. And right now, Argentina doesn't have that. Not on the scale that it needs.
So even if Argentina became this huge supplier of these rare earth elements, they could end up stuck in the same cycle, right? Exporting the raw materials. While other countries that have the technology, they're the ones who actually profit.
It's the same story, different chapter, and this is where Aureli brings up a pretty loaded term. Neocolonialism.
Neocolonialism.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a new form of economic dominance, right? Where countries like Argentina, they have the resources, but they're stuck relying on these more technologically advanced countries.
It's like having a pantry full of incredible ingredients, but no kitchen. No way to actually turn those ingredients into something, valuable.
And I'm guessing this is where the power dynamics really come into play. So who are the big players here? Who's pulling the strings in Argentina's mining sector?
Well, Aureli lays it all out. And it's not exactly a secret society. We're talking about multinational corporations, mainly from Canada, the US, and China. They've got the deep pockets, they've got the investments.
And of course, we can't forget about the lobbyists.
Right, the lobbyists. Aureli points out that mining interests, they spent, get this, over $500 million on lobbying in Argentina just in the last few years.
$500 million
Okay.
on lobbying.
You see how this works, right? They're not just whispering in ears, they're practically building a megaphone factory next to the government buildings.
Talk about making your voice heard, huh?
That's one way to put it.
So they're spending this insane amount of money, obviously trying to influence things, trying to get the rules written in their favor.
Exactly. And that brings us to this big turning point, right? This 2024 law we keep mentioning. The one that's supposed to attract even more foreign investment into Argentina's mining sector.
Sounds a little familiar, right? Like more of the same.
Yeah, on the surface, for sure.
Yeah.
But Aureli, he's like, hold on a second. Let's look closer at this thing.
Okay, so what's he see? What's in the fine print?
So one thing he points out is these long-term tax stability agreements. Now, I know some stability, that sounds good, right? Investors, they like to know what to expect. But these agreements, they basically lock in these tax rates for, like, forever. Well, maybe not forever, but decades sometimes.
Well, even if Argentina, wakes up one day and realizes, hey, we gave away too much, it's too late.
Yep. Signed, sealed, and delivered. Like, imagine signing a terrible lease.
Ouch.
Mm.
Been there.
Right. And it's not just the taxes either. This law also has these provisions about currency exchange rates. They basically make sure these companies don't have to worry about the Argentine peso going up or down.
Which you're saying leaves Argentina kind of vulnerable.
Exactly. But okay, we've been throwing around a lot of economic jargon, right? Bottom line, Aureli's point is these policies, they're always sold as this is good for investment, this is good for growth. But are they really good for the average person in Argentina?
Right. That's what we really want to know. What's the takeaway for, people just trying to live their lives?
The thing is, these policies could actually end up hurting more than they help. They could create this system where all the profits, all the benefits of Argentina's incredible resources, they just flow right out, leaving behind environmental damage, economic instability, and not a lot to show for it, really.
Not exactly the recipe for a brighter future we were hoping for.
Nope, not quite. But, and this is important, Aureli doesn't want to discourage us. He really believes Argentina has a choice, like right now, a real chance to do things differently.
Okay, so less doom and gloom, more solutions. Love it. So what does he
A
suggest?
few things. First, those stability agreements. He says shorten them up. Give Argentina some breathing room, right? The world changes, markets change. Argentina needs to be able to adapt.
Makes sense. So what else?
Second, invest in themselves. Argentina needs to develop its own technology, its own expertise. So they're not just the raw material guys, right? They can
Mhm.
process, they can manufacture, they can add value.
So, like we were saying before, it's about building that kitchen, getting the right tools to turn those ingredients into something special.
Exactly. And here's the most important ingredient of all: people. Citizen engagement. Aureli is really passionate about this. Strong institutions, transparency, people holding their leaders accountable. That's how you make sure Argentina's resources benefit all Argentinians.
It's about making informed choices, learning from the past, and not being afraid to demand more.
Yes, and recognizing that Argentina's lithium, those rare earths, all of it, those are assets that belong to the people, not just corporations, not just governments, the people.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, haven't we? Numbers, laws, some pretty complex issues. But I think we've also, hopefully, shed light on a path forward, a path toward a more just and prosperous future for Argentina, one where its natural wealth actually translates into a better life for everyone.
It all starts with asking those tough questions, demanding more from our leaders, and never losing sight of the bigger picture. Argentina is at a crossroads, no doubt, but the power to shape the future, that's in their hands.
And on that note, we'll leave you to mull over all of this. You've got the information, you've got the insights. Now go out there and draw your own conclusions and keep the conversation going. This is an ongoing story, after all, and it's far from over.